Hi, and welcome to City Currents, a dialogue about Durango where you can join in the conversation. My name is Jose Madrigal, and I'm the city manager for the city of Durango. And I'd like to welcome our first guest, Chief Bob Rammer with the Durango Police Department. Hi, Chief.
Hello, how are you, sir?
Doing well. So, wanted to start off a little bit with introduction of ourselves to the community, as well as just kind of talking a little bit more in regards to police department and some of the things that we are all facing and some of the critical challenges in these upcoming year. But let's start off first with why a police officer?
This is a great question, and I have to reflect back over some time. But I served in the United States Marine Corps after high school before I went to college, and decided I was going to be a police officer. And I think my time in the Marine Corps really reflected on the fact that I wanted to serve my community. I wanted to help people. And every time I would deploy in the Marine Corps and go overseas somewhere else, I would come back to our country, and I would find out that there were still issues that were relevant to our citizens here. And I felt that I could have a greater impact of serving our country and our people by serving as a police officer within our own communities.
Nice. So when you were coming into a police officer, I think, a few years ago, we'll say, a lot of things have changed. What would you say are probably two or three of the biggest changes that police departments are going through right now?
I think the biggest changes that police officers are, as a profession, is facing right now is the fact that we're really kind of getting back to understanding what our communities want from us. Sir Robert Peel was kind of the founder of law enforcement for police officers across the world, and he came from England. But his big philosophy was that people are providing the power, and they police themselves how they want to be policed, and they provide that power to police officers in order to govern them and to understand what society rules are going to be tolerated at any given time. And I think we're seeing that cultural reset right now. When I got into law enforcement, it was in the late 90s, and there was really kind of this whole concept of the war on drugs, the war on crime, and our entire focus was going after the poisoners of our communities and putting them into prison. And that has since changed. We know that a lot of people that are in our prison systems and our jail systems are not always there because of the actions that they're committing, but there's underlying reasons to go along with that. And through the concept of restorative justice, I think we're looking at better components now that there are going to be some addiction issues that fall within either mental health, substance abuse, and each one of those potentially are treatable, and we can bring people back in line with society's norms and move them forward. So I think that's the biggest change that we're seeing right now. It's just understanding what that is. And, in some cases, I think we're putting the cart before the horse because the systems aren't necessarily built around that concept yet. And we're playing catch up. And that's where we're kind of getting ourselves in a little bit of, frustration, throughout our society, throughout the rest of this country.
So as you're doing recruiting for new officers for Durango, what are some of the attributes that you're looking for in those officers that are coming onto the force that are really important that you would see for us to succeed as a police department for our community for many years to come?
I think one of the key attributes we look for people are the compassion. People that want to do good for their community, people that want to really embrace society's problems and look towards solving problems. I mean, our officers have to care. They have to care about what they do. They have to care about each other. They have to care about our community, and they have to care about what the result is. We can make arrests all day long, but if we're not getting the end result to change somebody's behavior, and then what are we doing? We're just wasting a lot of people's time. So changing the mentality of policing now too. We just can't get police officers that are just coming in and just putting the hammer down on people. I mean, they really have to think about, this is my community, and when I put my badge and my gun and my gun belt on and my police, my body armor, when I'm on duty, I'm a better person, and my community is a safer place to be because I am on duty. So it's that protector mentality that people have to have, and those are the people we're looking for.
That's great. So let's take it back, I guess maybe bring it a little bit more locally to Durango in regards to the policing activities. With COVID coming around right now and kind of dealing with that, what has that done with the activity level of the police department?
COVID was a challenge. Early last year, just like in our preceding years, we actually were seeing dramatic pre-stabilization of decreases in crime across our community. COVID hit, we actually saw a big decrease, but that's when everybody was on the lockdown. And once this summer hit and the restrictions were there and I think people were getting tired, we actually saw a pretty dramatic increase in crime across our community. And that's not just us. That was not something that we were just immune to or other areas were. That was a statewide and national-wide increase, from June up and through now. And we continue to see, little increases and maybe hopefully a stabilization now because we're actually starting to figure out what those impacts are. But we did see an increase in crime, and that's concerning to us, and we've had to revamp our entire strategies. Because unfortunately crime, just like COVID, is a virus and it's adapting and it changes, and crime does the same thing. So whatever strategy may have worked 10 years ago doesn't necessarily work today.
So talking about strategies, how do you decide when to shift strategies? Kind of what's that decision-making process that you all go through as a command staff to determine when we need to shift priorities or how we need to handle our situation a little different?
Unfortunately, we're caught behind the 8 ball at times because we have to be reactive to it, because we actually have to see the trend. We don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. There's no computer analytic program out there or anything else that's going to be able to tell us what the future is. And people are irrational, and people, they make their own choices and they do things on their own accord, and we can't predict that. So we have to take all that data and we have to analyze it and look at it and develop our strategies based around things that have already occurred to hopefully be able to put something in front of us, in front of our community, and to be able to make some of those course corrections and be able to make that happen. So strategy is extremely tough when it comes to crime suppression efforts. And we have to look at what our community wants as well. What are we willing to tolerate? Where are those thresholds of what's going to be important and where can we put our efforts at based off of what our community needs are.
So I think one of the other biggest challenges with COVID-19 was just not only with the crimes that we've had to be dealing with, but also with some of the health orders that have come up. And can you talk just a little bit about how you saw as the police role with those and some of the strategies that we've been able to implement that seem to have been pretty successful with voluntary compliance?
Yeah, the COVID health restrictions, the public health orders that came down, we had to receive direction not only from CDC, but CDPHE, the state, our local governing board. And we had to kind of work with that because that was a realm that we really were not ever thrust into before. So we had to be very adaptable to that. And even then, there was a lot of expectations that exceeded what we could actually do. And so we had to find that balancing act of, okay, where do we put forth our efforts? Who do we partner with? Because some of the other trends that came out in the country, there's a lot of things that get put upon police officers and police departments that aren't necessarily police related. And there's other aspects of who can pick up those duties and responsibilities that we can partner with and make sure that we're all in alignment as a community. And the health department orders were kind of the same way. Is we didn't have a lot of authority based off how those were written statutorily, and we needed to be directed or governed from somebody else in order to take action on top of that.
Awesome, thank you. So looking ahead, the next 5 years, what are some of the accomplishments you see in your crystal ball that you'd like the police department to do in these next 5 years as we move forward, kind of coming through COVID, out of COVID, and then kind of moving forward? What are some of the big accomplishments you'd like to see the police department take or undertake in the next 5 years?
Well, and that's a very interesting conversation to have because with all the reimagining police concepts that are going on around the country, last year we did a staffing study. We know that we are 15 police officers short from where we should be today, as far as how the growth has gone for over the last 20 years within the Durango area. With 15 police officers, we still need detectives, we need supervisors, we need the professional support personnel to absorb that workload to make it happen. We don't know if 15 is the current number for us or not, because right now what we're trying to reallocate is those duties, those responsibilities that maybe aren't police functions or solely police functions, and how do we share those responsibilities with other organizations, either in the city or with some of our regional partners such as Access Mental Health, the fire department, the hospital, our detox centers. And so maybe 10 is more of our realistic number of where we need to go, along with the support personnel to absorb that. So we need people, and I think we need to catch up. And once we're able to have the amount of people that we can have, then we can get back to those proactive strategies and those problem-solving strategies. And we can re-engage our community in those areas that our community feel are great needs of how to enhance our quality of life and worry about the sanctity of life within our community and put those as number one goals. However, then there's a domino effect that comes along with it, because when we have more people, we need more equipment. Obviously, our police building across the street is barely housing the size of the police force that we have for Durango right now. It's also not in an optimal location. And so if we put on 15 or 20 more people, we're gonna have to grow that size of that building. We need additional equipment. We need to make sure our technology is up to speed. Recently with the realignment of the city organization, the dispatch center is aligned with the police department. So now we're one big division, essentially. They have a lot of equipment needs and training needs that they need as well. So we need to make sure we prioritize all those things to make sure that we have the highest level of staff that we can in order to serve our community to the highest level we possibly can.
Thank you. And I just kind of want to finish up with a couple questions just kind of about you, get a little bit more personal, if you will, just kind of as you were kind of going through your police department, going up through the ranks. So as a patrol officer, when you were patrolling, what was one of the most memorable moments you can remember in your career when you were doing patrol?
It's a long time ago. I think just seeing people and, when engaging people, and it wasn't anything that necessarily happened back then. It's really kind of how it's paid dividends now, because I run into people now that they were in high school and now they're police officers at our department. I run into people that were kids or family members or community members, and I see them now and they remember things about me back then where I don't necessarily even remember those interactions that I had back then. But the impact that I was able to have as a police officer in their lives and see how they have grown and they've prospered throughout the course of their lives. I think that has been extremely exciting to be able to see those developments within those people.
Gotcha. And so then the last question, while you're patrolling, and you have the music not turned up a lot, but maybe a little bit, what's the genre of music that you were listening to when you're on patrol?
Well, when I first started, it's basically, we're limited on the type of music we have here in Durango just because of the limited amount of radio stations we have. I did not benefit like a lot of these officers do now, where they have a Bluetooth and they can connect their phone and listen to anything that they want to. A lot of times, they would even take the radios out of our cars because of the fact that we needed the console space in order to have that. So we wouldn't even have that. So I like 80s music.
Gotcha.
And I think, listening to some Motley Crue as I was going down the road, I think it was a good choice.
Awesome. Very well. Thank you very much, Chief, for your time on the interview. And I think now it's time to get to the questions from the public. And Chief, the first one question you may be able to help me out with. It is from Bill Frederick. And he asks, why not expand the police station in Three Springs to make it the main police station?
It's a great question. And I think I would preface first that it's great that the community is actually thinking about our facilities and the need and where that would be. The police station is a tool, and a police station has to be deployed correctly within our city. One, to make it accessible to the public, and two, to be able to deploy our resources in a timely manner. As we say, both in all of our emergency services, second save lives. And so we have to be able to have a functionality of that police station where it's going to be able to be deployable, but again, be accessible to the public. Three Springs is an interesting location. That is where a lot of the growth is going from the city. But we also, when we build a new facility, we can't forget about the rest of Durango. And recently, within the past year, we did a 50-year facility analysis and understanding of what our city's going to do, what it's going to grow, what it's going to be like in 50 years. And with that, we're seeing a lot of the growth trends go south, and we're seeing it going east, and we project that to be true moving forward. So currently, right now, we think the best location for a police facility is going to be somewhere around the 550-160 intersection or somewhere within the Bodo industrial area. Because that's where the jail is, that's where a lot of our other infrastructures are. The courthouse is right here up at 10th and 2nd. So we need to have some type of proximity where we can be in relation with the district attorney's office and our other regional partners that are out there. So the Three Springs area is a great area. There's a lot of vacant land out there, but I don't think it's going to be the optimal area for the deployment to meet our service needs for both our city and or our police department, even as we move forward as growth trends continue, because we can't forget about the rest of the city as well that's already existing.
Thank you, Chief. And just kind of as a follow-up question, I think, as we're looking at doing feasibility analysis, we look at kind of how COVID has played a role in maybe what the new future office would look like. Mm-hmm. Are we going to see things, or do you think we're going to see things that may affect what maybe a new police station or a remodeled police station would look like because of pandemics now that we're a little bit more familiar with them?
It's interesting because we talk about remote working environments. I don't think the police are really in that working environment right now. I mean, we can't take, our property technicians can't take property to their house and store it there. I mean, we have to have a facility to be able to store that. Our detectives can't take or interview people remotely as they're interviewing suspects and witnesses per se. I mean, there has to be a physicality in those facilities to be able to accompany that. So with the police, I think we're an exception to that norm right now. I think we still have to look at kind of the traditional type, functionality of what a police station offers in those locales, because we have to be there. We can't store guns, drugs, and stuff at our homes. We can't have bad guys at our homes. I think my wife would be very upset if I brought somebody home to do an interview of that sort. So I think there's still going to be that physical heart structure, and we're going to see physical police departments for years to come.
Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely.
And we do have a second question. It is from Carrie Vogel, and she asks, I'm wondering about the timeline for Three Springs Paved Trail to be connected to Durango near Home Depot. Carrie, I appreciate that question, and I was able to reach out to the Parks and Recreation Department to provide an update. And we do have some good news, I think, moving forward on that. So we just went under contract last week on March 24th with a professional engineering consultant to complete the design and construction documentation for that 2.6 mile section between the Smart 160 East Trail connection in 2021. We have begun analysis of the corridor between the existing Sail Barn trailhead near the intersection of Highway 550 and 160 and River Road, which is across from the Home Depot, and the current western terminus of the Smart 160 trail at Three Springs. So we're definitely taking a look at it. We're getting some analysis done, some design work, which I think is really exciting to really make that connectivity between it. We are looking at construction of the trail project is currently scheduled and budgeted to begin hopefully in early of 2023. And following the completed design work and clearances from the Colorado Department of Transportation and the Bureau of Land Management, as well as easement acquisitions from private property owners, we're hoping to have that done quite shortly after that. So we do understand the importance of having amenities all throughout our city. I think just kind of as you were saying, Chief, in regards to Three Springs and the north part of our town, making sure they're connected. So that is something we're looking at and actively working on to address. So thank you for that question, really appreciate it. And just want to thank Bill and Carrie for those great questions. If you haven't done so, you can call your question to our special hotline at 970-375-5091, or send us an email at citycurrents, all one word, at durango.gov.org. I'll be back in a couple weeks, another City Currents, and I want to thank you very much for watching. We'll have another special guest, and Chief, thank you very much for taking the time to come on and have a little bit of a conversation in regards to the police department and a little personal conversation. So really appreciate it. So on behalf of everyone here at the City of Durango, thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.